Starting on August the 1st, members of the Green Party of England and Wales will be voting to elect a new executive, commonly known as GPEx. Now, members of GPEx are elected to specific portfolios, but also hold general responsibility for the day-to-day management of the party, its financial well-being, its reputation, and so on. And today I'm joined by one of the candidates for the Internal Communications Coordinator post. Now, there are job share candidates, so you will be quite quickly seeing two people on your screen. They're not separate candidates, they're standing as one, which is why I've referred to them in the singular. But before I introduce them, I just have one thing to ask you to do, which is to scroll down right now and hit that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss out on any of the other content that Bright Green is putting out in the coming weeks and months. It doesn't cost you a penny and it helps Bright Green out massively too. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Georgie Oatley and Nannette Youssef. Georgie, how are you doing?
Hi Chris, I'm good, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. I had a little bit of breakup there. I think that might be on your end, but hopefully it will even itself out because when we were chatting before it was fine. But I'm also absolutely delighted to be joined by Nannette Youssef. Nannette, how are you doing?
Hi Chris, good thanks, how are you?
I am doing well. This is, I think, the 14th of these interviews that I've done, so I'm a little sleepy, but I think it might be the last unless anyone else wants to reply to my emails and get some more in the diary. So I'll kick you off with hopefully quite a straightforward one, which is, how do you think the Green Party can better engage its membership?
So there's several answers to that question, but mainly, I think we need to streamline communications with members and work more closely with local parties so that people are getting a better range of information about what's happening within the party, how they can be involved, and for new members, really improving the member journey so that when we're welcomed into the party and they have a better idea of how the party works, how the various structures are organised, and how they can be involved to best suit their interests in the party and their skill sets outside of the party as well.
So you mentioned membership journey there. What do you think a good membership journey for the Greens would look like?
I think welcoming people to the party with a welcome pack kind of sent digitally and physically. Obviously that depends on funding, but giving new members a very clear idea of how the party works, especially, we quite often see people joining the party who've previously been involved with Labour or with other parties who are structured quite differently to us. And so it's really important for members to know how the party is organised and how policies are made and how we kind of get members involved in parliamentary processes locally, especially, and how they can get involved to get councillors elected, and so we can then get MPs elected, because that is the core point of our party.
So you've mentioned, I guess, local work there, and for many people within the party, their primary interaction with the Green Party is their local party and local campaigning rather than the national party. So I was wondering what you think that you would be able to bring as a job share team to better support local parties to more effectively engage and mobilise their members behind election campaigns.
Sure. So as you may be aware, Nannette was formerly a councillor on Norwich City Council. I believe she was the youngest ever councillor in the Green Party. So as a job share, we have experience of actually getting elected and going through that process, and so we will be able to work with the local party coordinators and with the field teams to get to better understand the processes currently in place and to better engage new members and current members to get new councillors elected. Sorry, my phone keeps buzzing there. So yeah, I think it's really crucial that people understand how to get involved into really important to get people to understand better the processes, and so that we can improve them as well, so that people have a better journey to getting to action days. Now that we are doing those again, getting to action days, getting out, knocking on doors, and year round, not just at election time. That's so crucial, that people are getting involved with their local party all year round, and not just when there's a vote to be cast.
So one of the areas that the internal communications coordinator is responsible for, or kind of politically accountable for, and has oversight over really, is the members website. Now, I don't think it will be uncharitable to say that the members website is not the most effective bit of technology the world has ever seen. It's particularly fresh in my mind because I spent today looking through policy proposals for conference, and it is an absolute nightmare. And I think most members' experience of it is that it is an absolute nightmare. So how would you improve the members website to make it more functional and work for what members need?
So yes, it's not the best website. It's not the most easy to navigate or to access. So part of the welcome journey, I think, should be kind of giving a better direction to how to access that. But then, of course, actually improving the website. I think the green spaces needs quite an overhaul. It's not a safe and accessible space. It's not, I don't believe that it follows our code of conduct particularly well, and there is a huge problem of misuse of green spaces. And in terms of then, proposing, seconding motions for conference, it's not easy to find the right information, and it's not clear there. I think a very easy update would be to provide a calendar of when things are happening and what is happening, so people are able to see, okay, I need to do this at this time, because too often people are just contacted about proposing or seconding motions when there's only a couple of days left to get involved. And just providing easier, accessible, more visually accessible information without requiring people to read pages and pages of information about how to get involved. We shouldn't be expecting every member to read the full constitution to understand how to get involved with conference. That's not a fair expectation of how members are involved in the party, and what members will be doing or why members are joining the party and want to get involved. So I think having quite a overhaul of green spaces to make it a safer place online, and providing like a better calendar of events, so people can see what's happening and when to expect things to happen, and just kind of making the kind of liberation groups perhaps more involved in the website in terms of monitoring policy and the updates. There's I think quite some outdated information on the website and lots of missing information, and if there was more centrally organised point for recommendations for updating the website, I'm not quite sure who's responsible for that, and perhaps they wouldn't appreciate that suggestion, but that's kind of what the role's for, I think.
So you talked quite a lot about some of the, I guess, things you'd like to see in terms of what the Green Party does in terms of its internal comms and your kind of platform and what you're standing for. I've got one kind of final question around the kind of specifics of the internal communications coordinator post before I move on to some of the kind of wider GPEx questions, which I think Nannette is going to take on. So my final question on the kind of specifics of the post is, where do you think the Green Party is going most wrong with its current internal communications?
So I don't want to say that there's too many emails, although I do hear people say that quite a lot. I think there's a bigger issue of the emails are too boring and there's not a clear ask. I think we need to ask people what they want to hear about and target them in quite a narrow way. So if someone says they want to join the party because they want to help get people elected, target them with information about action days. If someone joins the party because they're just, they want to they're more interested in the environmental side of things, invite them more towards the kind of policy steering groups. And I think asking people what they want to hear about and then targeting with them precisely with what they want to hear, and making sure emails are shorter and asking for more action from people, and perhaps asking for less donations. Perhaps maybe that could just be structured lower down in the emails rather than higher up. But I think, in my opinion, the purpose of the party is to get people elected, and we need to better engage our members. We've got the party keeps on growing, but it's still quite a small pool of members who are actively engaged in the party, and that's what we need to focus on strengthening. So yeah, I think that's I think perhaps where we can best strengthen the internal communications is by really focusing on what people want and helping them to achieve that.
Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the slightly broader questions around the wider party, because viewers watching may or may not be aware, but GPEx has these kind of broad overarching responsibilities which all members of the executive hold, which relate to financial management, for day-to-day management of the party, for the party's well-being and reputation, and so on. I wanted to ask a few questions that are slightly broader. The first of which is, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the Green Party right now?
I think that's a really good question, Chris, and I think that my answer can be divided into two different sections. Firstly, as the recent Diverse Matters report demonstrates, we've got a really long way to go to ensure that our party is a safe place for racialised and minoritised people of different backgrounds. And as a person of colour myself, I know that to be only too true. We need to urgently fix our disciplinary processes and our internal party structures in order to achieve this. And at the moment, they're not working adequately to ensure that the party is a safe place for everybody. This is something that both Georgie and myself would prioritise if we were to be elected onto GPEx, but it's also something that we have a track record of prioritising in different roles that we've both held, both separately and together. I think the other second challenge is a broader political one, however. It's never been a more important time to get another Green elected into the Houses of Parliament. With climate change already unfolding in front of us, the cost of living crisis, and both the Conservative and the Labour Party's failure to stand up for working people up and down the country, it's incredibly important that we have another powerful, radical Green voice in Parliament. And we both believe that grassroots organising is a really important step in reaching that goal. And that's why we have a really radical and exciting internal communications plan that we hope will inspire our existing party members to go out to action days and campaign. And that's why it's so important. But it's a challenge that we've yet to meet and that I hope that we can meet in the coming years.
There's a few things that you've mentioned there that I actually want to pick up on, and maybe one of them I'll throw back to Georgie afterwards. But before I get to that, you've mentioned, the first part of your answer there was around issues of diversity and discrimination. And you mentioned the Diverse Matters report, which for people who've read the executive summary that was sent to all members, I think there will be lots of people who won't be surprised with a lot of the findings in that, in terms of over the last few years, issues of diversity and discrimination have dominated a lot of the conversations in the party. We have 3 leadership or deputy leadership elections in a row. The issue of trans rights has been a continual theme, and the scourge of transphobia that has been whipped up by the national press and by the Conservative Party has infected parts of the Green Party too. But beyond trans rights, there's major issues of surrounding diversity and discrimination, some of which you alluded to. So you look at the deputy leadership election that's going on right now. All 4 of the candidates in that election are men from London. You look at the party from top to bottom, and it is overwhelmingly white in terms of the elected representatives we have, target candidates, people who sit on committees at a local, regional, and national level. So GPEx obviously has been presented with this report from Diverse Matters. It has responsibility for some areas relating to tackling discrimination and diversifying the party and building a party that's fit to fight for the liberation of all people. What would you do on GPEx to make sure that it does that?
First of all, let's be really unequivocal about this. Both racism and transphobia have no place within the Green Party, and it's discrimination of the worst form. There's no place for it at all. With regards to the Green Party's problem with racism and with being an overwhelmingly white political party, I can only speak from my own experience as a non-white member myself, in that saying that we have a really significant problem with representation, whereby we have a deficit of councillors of colour and people of colour within our leadership structures. But instead of just blindly forging ahead and encouraging more people of colour to stand and more non-white members to stand and more people of minoritised backgrounds to stand, we need to first understand why there is this deficit of representation. And that is the only thing that we can do if we stand a chance of solving the problem, because the recent Diverse Matters report painted a really stark picture of structural racism and discrimination and transphobia within the party that isn't being adequately tackled. Before we can hope to seek to improve the levels of representation in the party, we need to tackle these problems, and we can only do that by not carrying on this business as normal, by overhauling our complaint system and our equality, diversity and inclusion policies and procedures, which have been deemed to be wholly inadequate, not just by members of our own party, but by an external board that has come in to have a look and see where we're doing. So I think that's something that both Georgie and myself would prioritise if we were elected onto GPEx. Both Georgie and myself, we've been really vocal proponents of a no tolerance a policy towards transphobia within the party. We proudly stand behind party policy, which unequivocally states that trans men are men, that trans women are women, and that non-binary identities are valid. And as I've said previously, our current structures and disciplinary processes have completely failed to tackle this issue. They must be urgently reviewed and strengthened so that in the future they can deal with behaviour which contravenes party policy.
So the question that I wanted to maybe put to Georgie, but I'll see which of you wants to answer it, is in one of Nannette's responses there on the big challenges that the party was facing. You mentioned the challenge of getting a second MP elected and mobilising the party membership to do so. And you said that there was a radical platform of internal communications that you think that you can deliver to get there. I wondered if you could spell out what that looks like in terms of using the internal communications within the party to deliver that second or third or fourth or fifth MP.
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely crucial that we have more MPs. Caroline Lucas is fantastic, but we need more Caroline Lucases. We need more MPs in Parliament, and now is, yesterday is not too soon. So we need to be working with all the resources we have in the party. We do have quite limited resources available to us, but we do have very strong skills within the party. We need to be making sure that our liberation groups and our local and regional parties are making sure that they know what skills are available in their groups and making the most of them. So I think that we need to be working with all the different groups and all the different kind of entry points into the party to make sure that people are sharing their, sorry, my washing machine's gurgling away there, to make sure that we are making the most of the skills available within the party and that people are able to engage and get out on the streets, knocking on doors, talking to people and year round engaging with their local communities. We've seen how much of an impact we have when there are local councillors. Here in Norwich, we're constantly gaining more councillors in areas where people are seeing their councillors working day in, day out. Quite recently in Sewell in Norwich, we gained a second councillor with Alex Catt after Gary Champion only won his seat last year. And it's fantastic. We're really seeing in these kind of traditionally Labour, traditionally Conservative areas where people are seeing Greens making a difference. They want to get involved. People who are usually quite apolitical or, happy to be green with a lowercase g, as it were, they're wanting to get more involved because they can see the difference it's having on the ground. So I think it's really vitally important that all all levels of the party are getting members engaged and upfront and working towards getting more people elected. But I think that really needs to start at a local level. We need people to be engaging with their local parties to get councillors elected, so then people can see what the difference a councillor can make, and then they know, well, if a councillor can do this, what on earth would an MP do in our area? If we've got councillors who are transforming our city or county councils in this way, what on earth would an MP do for us here? And what challenges would we then be able to tackle in a much more transformative way?
So my final question, I always end on something slightly flippant, and I'm going to put it to both of you, or rather each of you, one asks either, and I'm going to pick on Nannette to go first. And the question is, who in the Green Party inspires you the most?
I think that Sian Berry inspires me hugely. I think that her as our co-leader was a really exciting and radical time within the Green Party. And I can't wait to see what she's up to now.
And Georgie?
Yeah, I was a big Sian Berry fan, and I'm very excited to see what else she's going to be doing in the party, aside from obviously being on the London Assembly. But I've got to give big props to Rosie Rule. She is an amazing activist within the party, and she was an astounding co-leader of the Young Greens. And I think it's, me and Nannette previously worked together on the Young Greens committee when Rosie was co-leader. She's now a councillor. I'm sure you're well aware, alongside you in Oxford. And I think mobilising younger members of the party and getting really engaged and really astute candidates across the country is so important. So I'm going to throw out some big kudos to Rosie there.
Both Rosie and Shannon will be very grateful, I am sure. So thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people find out more about your campaign?
You can find us on Twitter at Nannette Georgie. We've got a shared Twitter account there, and we'll be sharing updates.
Brilliant. Like a married couple that shares an email address, you have a joint Twitter account. So thank you for joining me. Thank you all so much for watching. I have a few final things to say before I let you all leave. The first of them is what I said at the beginning. I'll say it again now. Please do hit that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss out on anything that Bright Green is putting out in the coming weeks and months. The second thing is we've been talking for nearly half an hour. I'm sure there's plenty in there that you agree with. There may well be things that you disagree with. Please do let us know in the comments down below. And finally, it might surprise you to know that Bright Green does not have the backing of billionaires and big business. We rely solely on the kind and generous donations of people just like you. So if you found this interview and all the other interviews we've put out in this year's GPEx elections useful, then please do head to bright-green.org/donate and set up a regular donation so that we can keep doing this. We can keep doing all of our coverage of the UK's Green parties, the Labour movement, social movements, and the wider left. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very, very soon.